Now the analyzation of the news, evidently. There were several tonight, if you notice, having to do with entertainment. And I don't know whether they're all here or whatnot. The first one in the series, in part, said to be mentally original, life becomes an upper, a kind of drug, and unlike most of collective entertainment, which in a sense is a downer. And there was one in there that had to do with the fact that the crude are entertained chemically, back to the idea, the basic physical idea, for which there is some literal validity and mucho figurative validity, that is, of the brain running that unique aspect of man off of electrochemical energy, and for the sake of allegory to divide it up vis-a-vis the lines that we've been using of neurons and hormones. And you can say that the crude, as the news item did, are entertained chemically, whereas the more sophisticated, electronically. And it said, by the way, that a real thinker, to bring in a third party, entertains himself. But if you want to jump back, you will note that throughout history, or if you don't care to deal with throughout history, in your lifetime has been a constant barrage from the city-level intellectuals, attacks on the common forms of entertainment. The easy shot being television. And if they get a bit more expansive, they will begin to attack some movies, they'll attack books, then they'll tie in the growing depletion in our society of literate-minded citizens. But there has always been an attack on what seems to be forms of entertainment. I said historically, just so that you can see that there is a span, that there is not a new phenomenon of some social nature. For instance, the Greeks, part of the writers themselves were attacking other writers, and the circuses and the forums and the feeding of some of their friends to the lions instead of complete strangers. But you can see it today if you take it allegorically. One more time, there is physical validity to this. But that you could say that the cruder, the less civilized, the less sophisticated in contemporary times, are entertained, as they always have been, chemically. That is, the less you are sophisticated in just an ordinary sense, then the more you're inclined to be dealing with what seems to be entertainment at a closer to a hormonal level. Screwing, eating, wrestling around the floor with your kids, wrestling around the floor with your hog if you don't have any kids, and you got pets. And then on that kind of relative though meaningless scale, or for those of you in the Midwest, on that meaningful though relevant, well, turn it around yourself, scale, if you looked at from a ordinary level, the more sophisticated then become more inclined to be more desirous to be entertained electronically, vis-a-vis screwing and rolling around the floor with your pet hog. That is, they will end up at the higher end of the nervous system, that they will begin to explore and feel the need for entertainment that is not simply of a hormonal nature, and they are the ones who will end up patronizing galleries, reading books, and nowadays going to movies. Watching television, probably PBS, so they say. But there is tied to all of this the fact that, getting to the last part of the first in the series, having to do with entertainment, it says, of course, some of you may have already figured out that the unstated purpose of civilized, of collectively based entertainment is, in fact, to help create a kind of low-level stupor. And that's what I was trying to get you to consider this long way around, of why the basis of common forms of entertainment always being attacked. For instance, to make it simple, the whole idea of television being some sort of chewing gum for the mind, that it'll turn you into a zombie, that you will sit there like a hypnotized couch potato. Now, they pick on TV because it is a bit closer electronically to the human nervous system than movies, for instance, but it's the same thing. But rather than it being attack, what is it that ordinary forms of entertainment are supposed to be doing? Back to city level. Ordinary people, there'll be some sophisticated social commentators, critics, etc., would just delight in trashing movies, television. But it's just mindless. It offers nothing inspiring, will not help a man think, will not try and motivate him. What the hell is it supposed to do? It's supposed to put you into a stupor. Anytime you're still concerned about where the collective march of intellectual human progress is, you can ask yourself again, I know I bring it up once a year, but it's still amazing. And it should be amazing to you. I'm saying amazing in a figurative sense. But it should be amazing, interesting to you, that people forget that all forms of so-called entertainment, television, newspapers, magazines, the human mind is wired in such a way, it's not because people are stupid, it's because of the tie-in of everything, that men continually will ignore the fact, cannot even hold it in their hand any longer than they could a hot tamale. I'm talking about a real hot one, of course. The fact that, for instance, television is not made to entertain, newspapers are not made to convey the news, television stations are not there, even though they devote more and more of their time apparently to news and news-related. That's not the purpose. The purpose is to make money. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's the purpose, and the mind keeps forgetting it. The purpose for you to sit there, for an ordinary critic to sit there, and again we'll go back to television while reminding any of you who might be watching this on television. This is not an attack on television, it's just that television is now the most common form of common entertainment. Did I get a prize for using common twice? I was going to make a common joke, but to attack television, for instance, that, well, the shows are not entertaining. They're predictable. They're all rip-offs of one another. I've heard it all before. They never use a word that challenges me. They never go... Any attack is not funny. It's not dramatic enough. The acting's no good. This is a poor form of entertainment. I laugh, especially. And sometimes they'll pick out a particular network, just for instance. If you follow this, or a newspaper. Doesn't matter. But they'll say, well, especially, ZBS. And they're crummy... They treat entertainment, in the collective sense, as though it was aspiring to, that it purports to be some sort of creative endeavor. In the ordinary sense, artistic, original. That's not the purpose. ZBS, the New York Times, they're not in business to put out news, to entertain. That's the excuse to sell advertising. That's the business of life. Can you then, and that's not hard to see. We've been through this. You just have to understand. The whole radio, anything, a magazine. And you can pick up a magazine and say, boy, I don't know, this new news magazine or Time has just gone downhill. Their coverage is just nothing. I laugh. I guess I'm getting too sophisticated since I finally got my PhD. I realize that this is just pablum. This is not real news coverage. I should go ahead and subscribe to the London Times. You're laughing at the wrong person. You're scoffing. You're looking down your nose at the wrong person. I know it's physically challenging, but you should be looking down your nose at yourself. That was like one of the news items tonight, that father pointing out to the kid that he's running the risk of looking like a real fool by laughing at the religious, because there remains a distinct possibility that they're not serious at that. They're just having it you. And now you are laughing at a newspaper, laughing at television. Ha! Boy, I can't believe that they expect me to watch this crowd. And to be entertained, to think that's a good show? They don't expect that. It's quite, don't you know, they're in business. They put on shows for one reason, to sell advertising. If you would watch it, there'd be nothing but advertising. The shows are just an excuse. The news in the newspaper is just an excuse to sell advertising, hoping you'll buy it, pick it up, or they'll give it away so that you'll pick it up. Now back to. And yet, things are wired up in such a way that men consider all the way, and I'm using now the news as entertainment, because there was a news item the other night, if you noticed, that pointed out that the city is still on track, civilization is still trampling along our pace, as long as you can look around and realize that info is increasingly becoming entertainment. And that was the extent of the news item, but you're supposed to fill in the rest of it immediately like, well, hey, that's true. You know, is that describing the 1990s, the 1980s? Is that describing my lifetime or not? Yes, sure it is. All right. And still, you have things wired up in such a way that people, the way binary energy works in a 3D reality, that there has to be the appearance of opposition, remember, to give the collective, to give the simplistic, something to compensate for a lack of originality. Well, hey, I don't like that. Everybody else around me says, hey, guys, here at the bar, do you guys like this show? And all your other beer-drinking buddies go, boy, that show's great. That's one of my new favorites. And the guy, whether he says so or not, thinks, boy, what a bunch of dumbasses I associate with. That's his feeling of originality for the day. Everybody says, boy, is this new kind of beer, this new draft he's got here, isn't that good stuff? And everybody goes, ah. And this one guy goes, tastes like rat piss to me. That's his shot at originality. Back to where we were. What life is doing, that people are wired up to find fault with entertainment, like, well, it does not inspire me, it does not really entertain me in the real sense. That's not the purpose. Now, you, of course, take entertainment now, I don't have to remind you, yes I do, in a very wide scope of what entertainment is. It is not just a form of info and vice versa. It's the expansion of the human nervous system. The purpose of entertainment is not to agitate. It is not to, and I can start dragging out all sorts of synonyms and related synonyms. It is not to inspire. It is not to motivate. It is not to enlighten. It's not to disturb. The TVs, just the way things are wired up, those running TV stations, those running newspapers, those running magazines, they know not to be, they like to call it many times, controversial. And they'll put certain spins on it according to the time and place, but they know not to be controversial. The closest you get to anything that might be a little annoying or agitating is, under our conditions here in this part of the world, would be PBS. And that's still kind of iffy, but the point is they could be a little more, quote, controversial because they are not dependent absolutely on commercial advertising. But ordinary forms of entertainment are not, pick out a word you like, inspiring, annoying, agitating, motivating, thought-provoking. Anytime you do that, you're losing potential advertisers. I mean, this is no great secret. If you put on if XYZ Corporation sponsors some TV movie that's controversial, people will begin to pick at the XYZ Corporation. People will write to the network that carried it and say, boy, I'll never watch you again and all that. And whoever runs XYZ Corporation going to have fits, and they're going to call the advertising agency and make them have fits, and everybody's going to have fits up and down the line. The martinis will flow that day. Entertainment, as it's normally called, is to create a kind of stupor. Now, I know I'm being harsh, but you guys know that harshness doesn't count. It doesn't cost any more. Hell, I'll be harsh. It just sounds harsh. It is not, we'll try it the easy way then. I'll go back to the item itself. The actual purpose of collective styled, that's a hyphenated term, collective styled entertainment is to minimize one's intellectual activities. Back to how only a real thinker enjoys the good humor of life. The good humor is to think about, you don't have to hold up your hands, if you want to, how many times you have turned on your own TV and then scoffed. What a bunch of crap. But you're laughing at the wrong thing. You sit there, and some of you ended up with one. We'll assume that you bought it in some way, or if you stole it, you ran a risk. Anyway, you ended up that you possess this thing, and then you turn it on and go, ha! Boy, this is an insult to my intelligence. I mean, Ordinary people miss the real laugh. The real laugh is you're sitting there criticizing this thing when it's doing just what it should be doing. It is to, in effect, minimize your intellectual activity. And there you sit laughing, scoffing. And of course, from any ordinary sophisticated view, it's defensible. You say, well, you're scoffing in a well-founded manner. Or go to movies. Oh, geez. They just rehash the same thing. It's whatever the complaint is. The complaint, what they're saying is, in essence, what they're saying is, it is not original. It does not inspire me to original thought. No matter what they call it, that's what they're saying. But that's not the purpose. And rather than look at entertainment, what's going on at the collective level of life? Not just entertainment, as I said, take it to a wide extent, but now take everything, politics, religion. Whereas from one view you can see, in some of the later news items tonight, I sort of tried to put a weekend wrap-up on it, that the feeling that one should somehow do better in life is no more than the collective's name for the individual urge to be more original. That's what I've hit on and bring up a little bit last time, that if you can see the whole desire for mysticism, to be religious, to be politically active, to do good in life, for you to do better, to be a better human, to be more intelligent, to be more educated, to be more famous, anything that's just reasonably civilized, in a reasonably civilized way, is accepted as being an improvement in your life. To do good, to do something meaningful. All of that is the collective name for one thing. All of it. It's the urge to be original. Here. Not anywhere below here. It's not, you're not being original to try and be original in your hormones at a physical level, as we have well established. That is simply suicidal. It's the desire to be original here. That is the absolute foundation of everything that comes out institutionally in man. Religion, art, politics, economics, education, social life, anything you name, anything that you name that is what we've been calling city life of man, the civilization of man, the collective reality of humanity, which is here. All of that, you can, without any effort, once you see it, is just quite simply melted down to one aspect, and that's the desire to be original, because that is what is pushing man's intellect. What is human progress? Forget the technology, but what is human progress if there is singularly that? It's here. And what brings it about? What appears to be at the given time something original, scientific, intellectual, moral, religiously, or religious. So what you have in all forms of entertainment and etc. is life saying, be more original. And that is the basis, the unstated, the unrecognized basis of all criticism of everyone else, of the collective life of man, of television, of books. Well, books, I can't stand to read books anymore. They just, it's all gone downhill. It's just trash. I mean, it's nothing inspiring. It's not supposed to be inspiring. Not what they actually mean, because what they mean is what I just said, to be original. Ah, crap, I've read this thing before. This guy keeps writing the same book over and over. Every 2 years it comes out with a new novel, and it's the same thing. Or you hear there's a lecture about how to get in touch with your cosmic inner child. And I go there, and it's the same thing. I paid $10 to go to this lecture, $110, and it's the same thing I heard this other guy say out in Omaha, and it only cost me $80 10 years ago. But it's the same. The collective's job, which is what entertainment is, the collective's job, its responsibility, is not to do what men think it is. In the same way that religion's job is not to do what it says it is. The judicial system's job is not to do what it says it does, or is supposed to do. Education's job, again, it's an area we've well established before, that if they did actually, quote, succeed, they would be suicidal. They would have put themselves out of business. It is not their purpose to succeed. It is their purpose to say what the goal is, and their purpose to affirm consistently, especially if asked, is that still the goal? Well, certainly it's the goal. We're unchanging. We're an institution. We don't change goals. Not something as important as blank. And you fill it in like, the eternal life, the salvation of your soul, the salvation of your brain. No, we hadn't changed. Of course, then you're not supposed to ask, well, are you getting closer to succeeding? Shut up, kid. Get out of here. You look like a heathen anyway, you know. Entertainment. All the activities of human institutions have as their unstated, unrecognized goal the minimization of intellectual activity. That is, I didn't put it down as a new definition, but that is literally, in the sense that we're talking now, the definition of entertainment, vis-a-vis the other descriptions I was making. Entertainment, let's say, as opposed to work, entertainment as opposed to any other aspect of human life that you could find that would not necessarily qualify or be limited to the term entertainment, then what is it? You say, well, to go have fun, to go out and have some excitement. Now, the crude, it can be excitement on a cruder basis, on a more simplistic, hormonal basis, that the cruder you are, and of course you can be civilized sometimes and crude sometimes, or so I've heard, I don't know. But the cruder you are, the more that you can pursue what seems to be describable as excitement. That is, go out and get drunk, raise hell, maybe get in a car wreck, get in a fight, try to pick up several different women, they kick you in the private parts and insult you. That kind of, you call that excitement. But now if we leave or rise above that kind of crude level and assume that you're a more sophisticated pursuer of excitement and entertainment, then you get into areas wherein you would say, well, let's go to a lecture. Let's go to the new art show. Let's go to this new movie that everyone's talking about. And then you go, and half the people, half the time, will criticize the movie on the basis, well, it didn't do anything for me. And what are they saying? It was not original. It did not inspire me in any way to think original thoughts or to feel anything originally. That was not the purpose. The purpose was to minimize intellectual activity. Just the opposite, as far as binary descriptions go, just the opposite of what quite sane people say is the purpose of entertainment. Well, I went to the lecture, I went to the movie, and I could get them to say this, not that hard, to be, kind of not just entertained. I enjoy a good laugh, and I like to see good acting and good sets and lighting. But I went there to sort of be, kind of excited. I mean, so I felt like I'd been through some new experience, something sort of original, kind of a little agitation, a little motivation to the intellect. Yeah, that. No, not that. That's not why you went. That's not why other people go. The whole purpose is to minimize. That's what they call entertainment. The very thing, now the work week's through. I want to have some excitement. No, you don't. Now, if you're crude one more time, don't get it. Well, you guys are sharp enough, but don't get confused now. If you're crude enough, you can say, all right, the work week's through. I don't have to lay more bricks till Monday. Hey, I'm going out and get drunk and hopefully get arrested and wreck my car. Now, some people, so I hear, just brutes, just rumors, that some people do find it entertaining. I don't know. I've heard that. But we'll assume that you people are in some way beyond that. So that's not really much of a civilized level of discussion. So we're back to the real civilized. They will go do something other than that. They'd say, well, that's not fun. That's not excitement. So you're right. With a wave of our hand, we'll finally dismiss that. Okay? So beyond that, everyone else would say, with just a little prodding, they'd say, yeah, I went there to be neurally agitated, too excited, not physically, not to be hurt, not to get in a fight. I'm not, my God, man, I have a BMA, an MBA, a BBB. I have a degree. I finished high school. I don't go out and get in a fight. That's not fun. And so they say, I am going out to be intellectually motivated. I'm going out to be encouraged in my neural system, to be excited. No. If they go and actually got excited, they would complain about it. They wouldn't know what to call it, but they'd say, well, that's too controversial. Now, of course, the easy way, I just always say, I didn't get that. That was some kind of, I don't know, that was one of those half-assed New York pseudo-faux attempts to be arty. What a bunch of crap. That's easy to do. But if they did find themselves fairly entertained and just enough that they'd criticize just a little, and then of course come back and see it again or buy another book by the guy, the criticism is absolutely ill-founded because the purpose of that kind of entertainment is to minimize intellectual activity. It is to soothe and to calm the nervous system. But notice, again, it's the great engine running things at this level, as men will say, rational men. And, of course, we certainly wouldn't argue with them because they're correct from that view, that just the opposite's true. I don't go buy a book. I do not spend my good money on a novel after I read these great reviews. I don't buy a novel to go home and sit there, and by page 50, I'm sitting there, I've dropped the book and gone to sleep. That's not the purpose. Oh, yes, it is. I just had to exaggerate. That's exactly the purpose. If it got too invigorating, a man would drop it. Not from sleep. He would suddenly find something else to do, or suddenly decide, boy, what a piece of trash. You wouldn't know why. You just find it offensive. You find it annoying. Annoying. There was another definition in there somewhere tonight that said, now there's one, city experts are seldom original. You have to fit that in yourself. Here it was. It's hard to be considered a, quote, entertainer, or an, but I had to put in quote, so it changed the article from an to a. Do we have any English teachers now? It's hard to be considered an entertainer if what you do does not encourage stupor. Rather than us worry about whether we're referring to Buddha or you or Henny Youngman, God bless him, someone out there, how about yourself? Because if you begin to approach the possibility of being your own thinker and your own form of entertainer, that is no offense to movies and etc. that you might go out, but there's only one form of real entertainment. If you can be original, there's only one, and it's you. It's this end of your nervous system, normally, what do they call it? The brain. The brain. Oh, yeah. That's it. Once you can think in a certain way, there is no other. That doesn't mean you might not turn on TV or go read a book. It got nothing to do with it. But there is only one form of entertainment, because the only entertainment, once you can think, it's got to be original. And there's only one place for originality. Did you say one? What are you, deaf? One. You don't mean like in singular. All right, singular. Yeah, but you don't mean like in really, really unique. Not unusual, but unique singular. Yeah, one. There's only one source of originality. One. One. Yours. The end of your nervous system. That's it. If that's not it, there is no other. So then ask yourself how you might apply that news item that said that it is difficult to be considered an entertainer if what you do does not encourage stupor. If you followed all of that, are you kidding me? All right. If you followed all that, then you're left with, do you find what you think to be entertaining? And the guy says, are you kidding me again? And if I wanted to not waste my time since I'm doing both parts, we could ask the guy, well, have you considered that you don't know how to think? Well, if you were following all of that, then there would be a certain kind of logic, if not sequence. I noticed no one seemed to get much out of the viewer that said he wanted to know, by God, that if sequence, reasonable sequence, doesn't have anything to do with anything, then how do we explain this? How do we explain the fact that Mendelssohn came back as Mozart? Yeah, maybe we don't want to go into it. Hint, hint. That was a reasonable man that wrote that in. Back to would you care to consider how that might apply to ask your own nervous system? That if what you think, that is your own entertainer, is not actually entertaining, or he is not entertaining, unless it is creating and encouraging stupor, then how are you going to find entertainment in life? How are you going to find anything entertaining? How are you going to find anything original? I thought we just covered that. We did, sir. See, I was just checking whether you were listening. Because there's nowhere to look. In a sense, once you can, let's just be crude and say, once you can sort of open up the end of your own nervous system, which life is doing at a collective level, but if in some strange way, I don't know how, don't ask me, don't write me, who knows. But if in some way you can like open up the end, turn off a tap, open up a little trap door, the end of your own nervous system, but there at that thing we was talking about, that you know, that thing. Then you can be original to yourself for no other reason, no particular fame, fortune, or profit from it. If you can do that, then everything else, even if it's called original, even if you've never seen it before, if it's called original, brand new movie, brand new, whatever it is, then just to play with words, and why not? They play with us. Then you would have to say that there are two levels of originality. That originality and real originality. And there's only one source of real originality. You. Which is what makes it so tricky, because then an ordinary person, are you going to say, if they could follow this thus far? I was about to. Well, save your time. Okay. But if they did, then say, well, what's the point of all this? How can I be original? Well, shit, if I tell you, and you go, well, hey, I like that. Come on. Well, Art, says the person, well, let me ask you this. What's the proper way? How do I know if I'm being original? What if I try to be original and I do it wrong? What if I have an original thought, and even though it is an original thought, it's, you know, kind of a bad thought, a yucky thought, a questionable thought. See, that's what makes it hard to turn this sort of thing, always has been, into entertainment. Because people keep waiting to go into a stupor. No, they don't call it. Well, they keep waiting to get to the point to go, uh-huh. It's to where the electrical aspect of their nervous system gets in sync with the running of the electrons on a TV screen. That's why you sit there and go into a stupor. You think it's the show. Well, the show's boring. No, it's not. It's you're getting in sync. It's intellectual lip sync, except it's on an electronic basis. And your mind's going, yeah. And you're not alone. See, and you could think, well, somebody could walk in to, somebody could get around some kind of original thinking, let's say. And you would say, well, it'd be just the opposite for somebody to get around that and go into a stupor. They might come in and be able to hear something like this and be alert about it. Well, how might we tell? Well, they really listen because they'll sit there and nod. And we go, huh. So that's two different things, right? Well, sure it is. Yeah. Do I have to go any further? We're not talking about psychology. We're talking about electrochemical basis of three-dimensional reality run by such binary laws of dynamics. There you sit. I won't leave it there. There a man sits in front of the TV in a stupor. And you can say, well, you know, the classic couch potato thing. But what do? A man's not actually in a stupor unless he's gone to sleep if he's still sitting there watching it. Of course, we all know that a man can sit there in front of a TV for 4 or 5 hours and you ask him later, you know, was anything good on? Well, exactly what was on. And he actually sit there and his eyes open. Now wait, it's not TV's fault. It's not the content of the show. But you can see a man sitting there. In other words, it turns out he was, in a sense, in a stupor. You all know this, that you could have sat there in front of that set, more or less, for 4 or 5 hours and can't really tell anybody exactly what it was you watched. Have to really grasp to come up for the name of a show or description. And so, but all the time he's sitting there, if you peek at him or yourself, many times during that 4 or 5 hours, a man will nod. And so you say, well, at least he's alert. He's not in a stupor. Wrong. That is the stupor. The crude version is, well, somebody just went, ah. A stupor is, is you get in sync with the entertainment of the collective environment. The example of TV, you get in electronic sync with the run, the scanning of the TV. You can do it with movies, do it with books. It just seems a little It seems different, but it's the same thing. So if you did not, for you to find your own mind, for an ordinary person to find their own mind, to be entertaining, it must minimize intellectual activity. If it goes otherwise, an ordinary person, which it does accidentally, what do they find it to be? They find it to be worse than a controversial TV show. They begin to feel as though they're losing their mind. Wait a minute, I'm having thoughts, and of course they have an explanation. I'm beginning to think things that are weird and strange. And it may be true. But the point is, their intellectual activity is getting too active. I need a drug. I need something to calm me down, a drink, until I can get to a psychiatrist. Or my brother knows this guy that sells pills down at the bar on the weekend, but Jesus, I got to do something. And what are they saying? I need some entertainment. I need my nervous system calmed down. And they have their own descriptions. My mind is off on a ramble. I thought we'd already established that John Lee Hooker owns the copyright to that. I told you last time you should use other psychiatric descriptive diagnoses. People say, well, my mind it's just getting out of hand. I can't control it. I'm going nuts. That may be. Well, an ordinary person, it doesn't mean anything. Well, to them it does, but it doesn't mean anything. And what are they saying? My intellectual activity is far too active. But then, I repeat one more time, they have to get to a specific reason. If you say, well, what? What is it? And then they'll say something. Well, I'm beginning to think that my dead mother's talking to me. I'm beginning to think that I'm getting messages from the Rockefeller brothers who now live on Mars. They're not actually dead. They will specifically say my mind is doing irrational things. What they're saying is I need to be entertained. I need to be calmed. I need a drug. I need a physical drug, whatever some of those depressants are. I either need that or what I need, get me to a TV set. Drinking upsets my stomach. Maybe if I just watch some TV, I'll calm down. They don't know what they're saying. It's like a cheap, what's that big antidepressant drug? Thorazine, what is it? Prozac. What's the other one? Valium. And it's not an attack on TV, but people will if they can't get their hands on a Valium, or they're taking too many, or they can't drink, they got an ulcer. What do people do? They'll think, well, I'll get entertained, I'll distract my mind, I'll turn on TV. And of course there are smart asses around that will attack TV and say, well, you're right, it's nothing but a cheap drug for the mind. That's not an attack. That's actually, it's doing its business. I got to calm down, my mind's too active. Back to the item I was asking you to consider, put it inside your own head where it says, it's hard to be considered an entertainer if what you do does not encourage stupor. That is why people do not want to think, not in the sense we're talking about, because it does not encourage stupor. Contraire. And people go, I don't need this. And of course then they explain why. Well, it's crazy, it's stupid, it doesn't make any sense. It's a non sequitur, and I do not have on summer slacks, and even if I did, I wouldn't have any sweet potatoes in them. For those of you that's already forgotten, that was one of the great news items. I'm just sorry we don't have time to go into it in much detail and analyze the piss out of it. That a man who carries sweet potatoes in his summer slacks does not need non sequiturs. I guess we wrapped, well, no, that worked out just right. That wraps it all up right there. In a shutnell.